The story of how we came to drink coffee for me is a fascinating one. It begins in the Middle East around the 15th or 16th century near Mocha in today's Yemen. This was at the time the Ottoman Empire was at its peak. The story goes, a goat herder noticed his goats becoming more frisky when they ate the berries, or beans as they're called by most people today. He was inspired enough to try them himself, so the story goes. Word spread, it gave him energy. Religious people learning about it adopted it as well, as they said it allowed them to pray all night and even have revelations. Coffee berries at first were made into a paste and then shortly after became a drink. An example of this could be found in the first coffee houses in Mecca, which was around the 1510s. Even then, as a drink, it wasn't served in households, only specialized places where people met to discuss business. Traders or travelers on the King's Road, for example. So people met, chatted, shared stories and information. Coffee houses were born and then spread across the empire into Turkey, later Europe, and then into the New World. Some vocabulary you may be familiar with. Part 2, into Europe. The first record of coffee being used in the West was in Venice from surviving merchants' records. When coffee first came to the UK, traders marketed it as having medicinal value, curing, and I'm quoting here, gout, hypochondriac wind, sore eyes, miscarriages, headaches, staying dry for all people, the king's evil, as well as generally just making you fit for business. It was not a laxative. So, 1652. Daniel Ibbotts ordered his servant, Pascal Rosé, who just happened to be an expert in preparing coffee, to open a coffee house, which was actually a bit more like a garden shed in the grounds of St. Michael's Church on Cornhill, London. Cornhill, as the name suggests, at that time was where merchants met. According to historic records, the reason for the coffee house or shed was that Ibbotts was sick of entertaining people at home and giving them coffee when he returned home from business, so he set up the shed. People passing by would use it as a takeaway. After 2 years, Pascal Rosé had made enough money to set up a real coffee house in a building nearby, almost opposite, and it was known as Pascal Rosé's Head, not the Turk's Head as is often reported on the internet. In a census done in London 10 years later, there were 83 establishments. Part 3. There are a few things that make coffee drinking so popular, in my opinion. Firstly, by adding milk, it became less bitter, so there was less of a connection to medicine. Even today, marketing companies know that by adding a bitter taste of medicine, it does make a placebo effect and increases the efficacy of the medicine. Number 2. It was called a waking drink or a chatty drink, which was the exact opposite of what most people consumed at that time. Alcohol, which made people rowdy or drowsy. And we have to remember people were moving from work like the Royal Exchange to a coffee house and then to other business establishments. So they weren't in any way intoxicated from the drink. Part 4. Rapid expansion. So around this time, the government and Puritans were against the idea of establishments that sold alcohol. A coffee house was a place you could meet and talk with others such as businessmen, lawyers, merchants, students or artists, and basically share ideas. The layout also added to their popularity and the reason for them growing. A long table was at the center. You'd pay a penny for your coffee and then you had to take whichever seat was available. Later there was a variety of printed material like newspapers and pamphlets. So in effect they were extremely sociable, educational places, as well as a fantastic place to do your business. Here's a question. Do you think this contributed to the Industrial Revolution and advances in science at that time? Part 5. A lot of coffee houses later became more specialized, so they were known for insurance or market trading, for example, and frequently named themselves after the type of establishment they were. Depending on the type of house you frequented, you may get the latest news, import-export information, even stories, songs or poems, such as Button's Coffee House. So knowing which place to go would give you a commercial or professional advantage with the information. They even came to exclude strangers in certain places as the information that was shared in them was so valuable. Part 6. The almost demise. In 1676, Charles II tried to have them all closed down because the main topic of conversation was himself. In the USA, across the pond, for me anyway, coffee was a more popular drink because of the tea taxes. I did find records in Boston, Massachusetts in 1670 of somebody called Dorothy Johns, who was licensed as a coffee trader and had permission to sell coffee at her tavern. Today, we have meetings and chains of coffee shops where we can use the Wi-Fi for free for 20 minutes and not really talk to anyone. Personally, I'd love to have the old idea of a coffee shop back again.